Park Sun-ho was tired. He had been tired for 3 years now, ever since his life had taken a strange turn that he still did not fully understand. But today, sitting in his small room on Earth's orbital station, he felt more tired than usual. His job was simple. He moved boxes. Well, not exactly boxes, but cargo containers filled with supplies that traveled between Earth and the Moon. It was boring work. It paid little, but it was honest. And Sun-ho had learned long ago that honest work was better than no work at all. He was eating his dinner, a sad bowl of reheated noodles, when his personal terminal made a sound. It was a message notification, but not the usual kind. This one was marked with a symbol he had never seen before. It looked like 3 circles connected by lines, glowing in soft gold. Sun-ho put down his chopsticks and opened the message. The text was short. It contained coordinates to a location far from Earth, somewhere near the edge of the solar system. Below the coordinates was a single sentence that made his blood run cold. "Your debt is being called. Attendance is mandatory." Sun-ho stared at the screen for a long time. His father had died 5 years ago, leaving behind gambling debts that Sun-ho had spent years paying off. He thought he had cleared them all, but perhaps he had missed something. Perhaps some collector from a distant station had finally tracked him down. He should ignore it. He should delete the message and go back to his noodles. But something about the golden symbol made him uneasy. It did not look like something a debt collector would use. It looked official. It looked important. Against his better judgment, Sun-ho made a decision. He borrowed a shuttle from his friend Do-yoon, promising to return it within a week. Do-yoon asked no questions. He was a good friend that way. Sun-ho packed a small bag with clothes and some emergency rations, and then he set off toward the coordinates. The journey took 4 days. Sun-ho slept poorly, his mind filled with worry about what awaited him. He imagined angry aliens demanding money he did not have. He imagined being thrown into some alien prison. He imagined never seeing Earth again. What he did not imagine was the station itself. When he finally arrived, Sun-ho could only stare through the shuttle window in shock. The station was enormous. It was not like the human stations he knew, which were functional and gray and built for efficiency. This station was beautiful. It was made of white metal that seemed to glow from within. Towers rose from its surface like the spires of ancient castles. Ships of all shapes and sizes floated around it, none of them human designs. Sun-ho docked his shuttle at a port that was clearly not designed for human ships. It barely fit. When he stepped out, he found himself in a hallway that was too tall, too wide, and too clean. The air smelled like flowers he had never encountered. A small floating robot appeared before him. It scanned him with a blue light, then spoke in perfect Korean. "Park Sun-ho. Human. Terran origin. You are expected. Please follow." Sun-ho followed. What else could he do? The robot led him through corridors filled with aliens. Sun-ho had seen aliens before, of course. Earth had been in contact with the galactic community for almost 50 years now, but he had never seen so many different species in one place. Tall ones, short ones, some with scales, some with feathers, some that seemed to be made of living light. They all looked at him as he passed. Some with curiosity, some with something else he could not name. Finally, the robot stopped before a massive door. It was made of dark wood, or something that looked like wood, carved with patterns that hurt Sun-ho's eyes if he looked at them too long. "Your destination," the robot said, and then it floated away. Sun-ho stood alone before the door. His heart was beating fast. His hands were sweating. He thought about turning around and running back to his shuttle. He thought about pretending none of this had ever happened. But then the door opened. A creature stood in the doorway. It was tall, almost 2 meters, and covered in short golden fur. Its face was narrow and sharp, like a fox from old Korean stories. It wore elegant robes of dark blue, and its amber eyes looked at Sun-ho with a mixture of annoyance and amusement. "You're tardy, human," the creature said. Its voice was smooth and cold. Sun-ho opened his mouth to apologize, to explain, to say something. But then he looked past the creature, into the room beyond. He froze. The room was a grand hall, larger than any building Sun-ho had ever been inside. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow light across everything. Long tables were arranged in a semicircle, covered with food and drink that Sunho could not identify. But none of that mattered. What mattered were the people sitting at those tables. Dozens of alien females, all dressed in elaborate gowns and ceremonial attire, sat watching him. They were beautiful in ways that Sunho's human brain struggled to process. Some had silver skin that reflected light like mirrors. Some had scales that shimmered in colors he had no names for. Some had wings folded against their backs. Some glowed softly from within. And every single one of them was looking directly at him. The fox-like creature cleared its throat loudly. "Ladies," it announced, its voice carrying across the hall, "your prospective husband has arrived." Sunho felt the world tilt beneath his feet. He grabbed the door frame to keep from falling. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I think there has been a mistake." The fox creature smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp for comfort. "There is no mistake. Park Sunho of Earth. You are exactly where you are supposed to be." It gestured toward the hall with one elegant hand. "Please, come inside. Your brides are waiting." Sunho did not move. He could not move. His legs had forgotten how to work. One of the alien females rose from her seat. She was tall and slender, with skin like polished silver and hair that flowed like liquid moonlight. Her eyes were pale purple, and they studied Sunho with an intensity that made him want to disappear. She walked toward him slowly, her gown trailing behind her like mist. "So," she said, her voice like wind chimes in winter, "this is the human who saved my sister's life." Sunho blinked. What?" The silver woman stopped in front of him. She was taller than him by almost a head. She looked down at him the way a scientist might look at an interesting insect. "My name is Velra," she said. "I'm the eldest princess of the Lunari people, and I am here to determine if you are worthy of my bloodline." Behind her, dozens of other alien females watched and waited. Sunho finally found his voice. "Can someone please tell me what is happening?" The fox creature laughed softly. "Welcome to the proving, human. Your life is about to become very interesting." Sunho sat in a chair that was too large for him. His feet barely touched the floor. Around him, the alien females continued to watch, some whispering to each other in languages he could not understand. The fox creature, who had introduced himself as Broker Nix, stood before Sunho with his hands clasped behind his back. His amber eyes held a patience that seemed practiced, as if he had explained difficult things to confused people many times before. "Let me start from the beginning," Nix said. 3 years ago, you were working as a junior navigator on a human cargo ship called the Eastern Promise. Do you remember this?" Sunho nodded slowly. Of course he remembered. It had been his first real job in space. He had been 25 years old and terrified of making mistakes. "On the 14th day of your voyage," Nix continued, "your ship passed through a region of space near the Vega system. Your captain had chosen a route that would save fuel, but this route took you close to a star that was experiencing unusual activity." Sunho's memory stirred. Yes, he remembered that day. The instruments had been acting strange. The readings did not match what they should have been. "You noticed something that your captain and senior officers missed," Nix said. "A solar flare was building. A massive one. Your calculations told you it would erupt within hours." "I remember," Sunho said quietly. "I told the captain, but he did not believe me. He said I was too young to understand the instruments." "So what did you do?" Sunho looked down at his hands. "I changed our course. Without permission, I moved the ship to the other side of a nearby asteroid, where we would be shielded from the flare." "You broke protocol," Nix said. "You could have been fired. You could have been arrested." "I know, and I was fired eventually. But the flare came, just like I said it would. We were safe behind the asteroid." Nix smiled his sharp smile. "What you did not know, Park Sunho, was that your ship was not alone in that region of space. Hidden from your sensors, traveling under diplomatic silence, was a vessel belonging to the Galactic Council." Sunho looked up. "What?" The council ship was carrying representatives from 37 different species, ambassadors, nobles, royalty. Nix gestured toward the females in the hall, including members of bloodlines that stretched back thousands of years. A cold feeling spread through Sunho's chest. The flare would have destroyed them. Their ship was old. Its shields were weak. They had no warning of the danger. Nix leaned forward. But when you moved your cargo ship behind that asteroid, you created a shadow, a safe zone. The Council ship detected your movement and followed. They hid behind the same asteroid, protected by the shelter you had created. Sunho's mind was spinning. He had never known. No one had ever told him. You saved the lives of over 200 beings that day, Nix said, including 17 members of royal houses, including the younger sister of Princess Velra of the Lunari. Sunho looked at the silver woman who had spoken to him earlier. Velra stood near the back of the hall, her arms crossed, her purple eyes unreadable. Among the species of the Galactic Council, Nix continued, there is an ancient law. It is called the Valor Debt. When a person saves lives of noble blood, that person is owed a great reward. The greater the lives saved, the greater the reward. I don't want a reward, Sunho said. I was just doing my job. I didn't even know they were there. Your intentions do not matter. The law does not care why you did what you did. It only cares that you did it. Nix spread his hands. The Council spent 3 years debating how to repay you. Human technology is already available through trade. Human wealth means nothing compared to what the Council can offer. So they asked themselves, what do humans value most? Sunho had a terrible feeling about where this was going. They studied your species, Nix said. They learned that humans place great importance on family, on legacy, on passing their traits to the next generation. He smiled. And they discovered something interesting. Human genetics are remarkably adaptable. Your species can produce offspring with almost any carbon-based life form in the galaxy. No, Sunho said. No. The Council decided that the most fitting reward would be breeding rights across multiple species, the finest females from the finest bloodlines, gathered here to offer you the chance to continue your line with each of them. Sunho stood up so fast that his chair fell backward. This is insane. I never asked for this. I don't want this. The hall went silent. The alien females stared at him with expressions ranging from surprise to offense to curiosity. An older alien stepped forward. He was short and round, with blue skin and multiple eyes that blinked in sequence. His robes were decorated with symbols of authority. I am Ambassador Orn of the Galactic Council, he said. His voice was deep and formal. Young human, you must understand. This is not a punishment. This is the greatest honor our civilization can offer. It doesn't feel like an honor, Sunho said. It feels like you're treating these women like prizes, like objects. A murmur ran through the hall. Several of the females exchanged glances. Ambassador Orn's eyes blinked rapidly. You misunderstand. These females are volunteers. They have chosen to participate in the proving. It is a great honor for them as well. Sunho looked around the room. Most of the females wore carefully neutral expressions, but here and there he saw something else. A tightness around the eyes, a stiffness in the shoulders, the look of people who were not as willing as they pretended to be. I don't believe you, Sunho said quietly. Ambassador Orn's blue face darkened. You are a human, a member of a species that has been in space for less than 2 centuries. You cannot understand our ways. Maybe not, Sunho said. But I understand what fear looks like. And I see it in this room. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Velra stepped forward. Her silver face was hard to read, but something flickered in her purple eyes. Something that might have been respect. The human is more observant than expected, she said. Her voice was flat, giving nothing away. Perhaps the proving will be more interesting than I thought. Ambassador Orn cleared his throat. Regardless of your feelings, Park Sunho, you cannot simply refuse. To reject the valor debt would be a grave insult to every species represented here. It could damage relations between Earth and the Council for generations. Sunho felt trapped. He was one person, a nobody, a cargo worker from Busan, who had been fired from his only real job. And now the fate of diplomatic relations rested on his shoulders. What exactly is the proving? He asked. Broker Nix answered. A series of trials designed to test your worthiness as a mate. You will be judged on strength, wisdom, compassion, endurance, and creativity. Each trial is sponsored by a different species. If you pass, you may choose which females you wish to bond with. If you fail, he shrugged. Well, no one has ever failed completely, but the results would be embarrassing for everyone involved. Sunho closed his eyes. He thought about his small room on the orbital station. He thought about his bowl of cold noodles. He thought about his simple, boring, safe life. That life was over now. He understood that. Whatever happened next, things would never be the same. He opened his eyes. Fine, he said. I'll do your proving. But I want you to know that I think this whole thing is wrong. And when it's over, I'm going to find a way to make it right. Ambassador Orn looked amused. Bold words for a human. Yeah, Sunho said. We're like that sometimes. In the back of the hall, Velra allowed herself a small smile that no one else saw. Sunho had not slept well. His room in the station was comfortable, far more luxurious than anything he had ever experienced. The bed was soft, the air was perfect. A window showed a beautiful view of distant stars. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of those alien females, watching him, waiting for him. A knock on his door came at dawn. When he opened it, he found broker Nick standing outside, looking as calm and sharp as ever. The trial of strength begins in 1 hour, Nick said. I suggest you eat something. You will need your energy. What exactly am I supposed to do? Sunho asked. Nick smiled his fox smile. You will fight. The arena was a circular pit carved from white stone. Seats rose around it in tiers, filled with aliens of every species. The bride candidates sat in a special section, dressed in fine clothes, watching with varying degrees of interest. Sunho stood in the center of the pit, wearing simple exercise clothes that someone had provided. He felt small and exposed. He had never been a fighter. In school, he had avoided conflicts. In life, he had learned to walk away from trouble. Now trouble was walking toward him. Her name was Kira, and she was terrifying. She stood nearly 2 meters tall, her body covered in scales that shifted between crimson and gold as she moved. Her eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, like a snake. Muscles moved beneath her scales with every step she took. She wore armor that left her arms bare, showing the strength beneath. She was a Dravani, Nix had explained. A warrior species. They lived for combat. They respected only those who could match them in battle. Kira stopped a few meters from Sunho. She looked him up and down, and her expression made clear what she thought of what she saw. This is the human? She said. Her voice was deep and rough. He looks like a child. Appearances can be deceiving, Nick said from his position at the edge of the arena. Kira snorted. Not this time. She cracked her neck, the sound like stones grinding together. I will try not to break him too quickly. It would be shameful. Sunho swallowed hard. Can I ask a question? Kira raised one scaled eyebrow. You may. What happens if I lose? You will lose? Kira said flatly. The question is, how badly? If you surrender immediately, you will be marked as a coward. If you fight and fall quickly, you will be marked as weak. But if you fight well, even in defeat, you will earn respect. And if I win? Kira laughed. It was not a kind sound. You will not win, little human. No one has ever defeated a Dravani in single combat. We are born to fight. We train from the moment we can walk. You are soft and small and slow. Maybe, Sunho said. But I'm also stubborn. The bell rang. Kira moved like lightning. One moment she was standing still. The next she was in front of Sunho, her fist already swinging toward his face. He barely managed to duck. Feeling the wind of her punch pass over his head, he stumbled backward. Kira followed, throwing another punch, then another. Each one was faster than Sunho could track. He dodged some, blocked others with his arms, and took several hits that made his entire body shake. A punch caught him in the chest. He flew backward, landing hard on the stone floor. Pain exploded through his ribs. He gasped for air. In the stands, some of the aliens laughed. Others shook their heads in disappointment. Stay down, Kira said. She stood over him, not even breathing hard. There is no shame in knowing your limits. Sun-Ho coughed. Blood dripped from his lip. Every part of his body screamed at him to stop, to surrender, to give up. He got back up. Kira's eyes narrowed. Foolish. She hit him again, and again, and again. Each time Sun-Ho fell, he got back up. His face was swelling. His arms were bruised. He was fairly certain at least one rib was cracked, but he kept standing. The laughter in the stands had stopped. The aliens watched in confused silence. "Why do you keep getting up?" Kira demanded. She was breathing harder now, not from exhaustion but from frustration. "You cannot win. You must know this." Sun-Ho spat blood onto the stone. "I know." "Then why?" He looked at her with one eye that was already swelling shut. "Because giving up is not who I am." Kira stared at him. Something changed in her yellow eyes. The contempt was still there, but now there was something else beneath it. Something like curiosity. She attacked again, but this time Sun-Ho noticed something. Her movements were slightly slower, not because she was tired, but because she was holding back, testing him, wanting to see how much more he could take. Minutes passed. They might have been hours. Sun-Ho lost track of time. His world narrowed to simple things. Dodge, block, get hit, fall, stand up, repeat. His body moved on automatic. His mind floated somewhere above the pain. Finally, Kira stopped. Sun-Ho stood before her, barely able to remain upright. His clothes were torn. His body was a map of bruises. But he was still standing. "You are the strangest creature I have ever fought," Kira said. Her voice was different now, softer, almost respectful. Any other species would have surrendered long ago. "The pain alone should have broken you." "Humans are good at pain," Sun-Ho managed to say. "We have a lot of practice." Kira studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed. The arena went completely silent. "I cannot defeat an opponent who refuses to be defeated," Kira announced. Her voice carried to every seat. "This human has no skill. He has no training. But he has something my people value above all else." She straightened and looked at Sun-Ho with new eyes. "He has an unbreakable spirit." Ambassador Orn rose from his seat. "What is your judgment?" "Kira of the Dravani." Kira turned to face the crowd. "The human passes the trial of strength. Not because he is strong, but because he is something more important." She looked back at Sun-Ho. "He is enduring." As medical robots rushed to attend to Sun-Ho's injuries, Kira walked to his side. She leaned down and spoke quietly, so only he could hear. "You are either very brave or very stupid." "Human." Sun-Ho tried to smile, but it hurt too much. "Probably both." Kira laughed. This time, it was almost warm. "I think I am beginning to like you, Park Sun-Ho. That is a dangerous thing for both of us." She walked away, leaving Sun-Ho to wonder what exactly he had gotten himself into. In the stands, Velra watched with thoughtful eyes. Beside her, a gentle figure made of soft light leaned forward with interest. Her name was Eula, and she had felt every moment of Sun-Ho's pain as if it were her own. And yet, beneath all that pain, she had felt something else. Something that made her want to know more about this strange, stubborn human. Hope. The medical technology on the station was impressive. Machines had scanned his body, found every crack and bruise, and healed most of them while he slept. But some pain remained. The doctors said it was necessary. Pain, they explained, was how the body learned to be careful. Sun-Ho thought humans had learned that lesson long ago. On the morning of the fourth day, Broker Nix came to his room again. "The trial of compassion begins today," Nix said. "This one will be different. No fighting, no physical tests. This trial will examine your heart." "My heart seems fine," Sun-Ho said. The doctors checked. Nix smiled. "Not that heart. The other one. The one that feels." The trial took place in a quiet room deep within the station. Unlike the grand arena, this space was simple and peaceful. Soft light came from nowhere and everywhere. The walls were curved in ways that made Sun-Ho feel safe and small at the same time. A single figure waited for him inside. Eula was unlike any alien Sun-Ho had seen. She was humanoid in shape, but her body seemed to be made of gentle light that shifted between soft, blue, and warm gold. She had no clear features. No eyes or mouth that Sunho could see. But somehow, he knew she was looking at him. Somehow, he knew she was smiling. "Park Sunho," she said. Her voice was like music, like wind through leaves, like memories of happy days. "I am Eula of the Aetheri. I will be your judge today." "What do I have to do?" Sunho asked. "Nothing you do not wish to do. This trial is about who you are, not what you can accomplish." Eula moved closer, her light growing slightly warmer. "I am an empath. I can feel what others feel. I can sense the truth behind words and actions. In this trial, you will face situations that require choices. I will watch not what you choose, but why you choose it." Sunho nodded slowly. "And if I fail?" "There is no failing in matters of the heart. There is only revealing what is already there." Eula gestured, and the room around them began to change. "Let us begin." The first scenario was simple. Sunho found himself standing on a street that looked almost like Earth. Buildings rose around him. People walked past, though they were blurry, like figures in a dream. Ahead of him, he saw two scenes playing out at the same time. On his left, an old woman had fallen and could not get up. On his right, a young man in expensive clothes was about to walk into traffic without looking. "Choose," Eula's voice said from everywhere and nowhere. "You can only help one." Sunho did not hesitate. He ran to the old woman. As he helped her to his feet, he heard the screech of brakes from his right. The young man had been pulled back from the traffic at the last moment by a stranger. The scene faded. "Interesting," Eula said. "Most beings choose to save the young. They calculate value based on years of life remaining. But you chose the old woman. Why?" Sunho thought about it. The young man looked healthy and strong. Even if I did not help him, he had a chance. The old woman could not help herself. She needed me more. "You felt her helplessness," Eula said. "You felt it as your own pain." "I suppose I did." The second scenario was harder. Sunho stood in a burning building. Smoke filled the air. Heat pressed against his skin. In one room, a group of 5 strangers huddled together, waiting to be saved. In another room, a single child sat alone, crying for her mother. "The fire is spreading," Eula's voice said. "You have time to reach one room, but not both. Choose." Sunho's heart pounded. This was impossible. 5 lives against 1. The mathematics were clear, but the child's crying cut through everything else. He ran toward neither room. Instead, he ran to a window, broke it open, and began shouting for help. Then he grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and started fighting the flames between the 2 rooms. "That is not a choice," Eula said. "I know," Sunho replied, still fighting the fire. "I am making my own option." In the scenario, the fire began to fade. Help arrived. Both groups were saved, but Sunho collapsed from smoke inhalation, his simulated body failing. The scene disappeared, and Sunho found himself back in the quiet room, gasping for air that was perfectly clean. Eula floated before him, her light pulsing with something that might have been surprise. "You chose to sacrifice yourself," she said. "You refused to let anyone die, even if it meant your own death." Sunho caught his breath. Was that wrong? It was remarkable. Eula moved closer, her warmth washing over him like sunlight. "I have judged thousands of beings across hundreds of species. Most feel calculation first and compassion second. They weigh options, measure outcomes, choose the logical path. But you," she paused, "you feel empathy first. Your heart speaks before your mind can silence it." "That sounds like a weakness," Sunho said. "To some perhaps, but not to me." Eula's form shifted, becoming slightly more solid, slightly more human. The Aetheri believe that true strength comes from the ability to feel the pain of others as your own. We have spent centuries searching for species that share this gift. We have found very few. Sunho did not know what to say. He had never thought of his emotions as special. If anything, he had always felt they made his life harder. "The trial is complete," Eula said. "You have passed." "That quickly?" "I did not need more scenarios. I could see your heart from the first moment." Eula reached out, and something that was almost like a hand touched Sunho's cheek. It was warm and soft and somehow sad. "Your species is young. You have been in the stars for such a short time, and yet you feel things so deeply. It is beautiful, Park Sun-ho. And it is terrifying. That night, after the official ceremonies were complete, and Sun-ho had been declared worthy of proceeding to the next trial, there was a knock on his door. He opened it to find Eula floating outside, her glow dimmed to a soft shimmer. "May I come in?" she asked. Sun-ho stepped aside. Eula entered and looked around his room. "You live simply. I am a simple person." "No." Eula turned to face him. "You only think you are." She was quiet for a moment. "I came to tell you something. Something I could not say during the trial." Sun-ho waited. "The other candidates," Eula said carefully. "Many of them did not choose to be here. Their families owe debts to powerful members of the council. This marriage gathering is a way to pay those debts. They smile and wear beautiful clothes. But inside, many of them are screaming." Sun-ho's hands formed fists at his sides. "I knew something was wrong. You felt it. That is your gift and your curse." Eula moved closer. "I do not know what will happen in the trials ahead. But I know this. You are different from what the council expected. You may be the first being in centuries who can change things." "Change things how?" Eula's light flickered. "I do not know. But I want to find out." She reached out and touched his hand. "I will help you, Park Sun-ho. Not because the council tells me to, but because you are the first person in a very long time who has made me feel hope." She faded from the room like morning mist burning away in sunlight. Sun-ho stood alone, his hand still warm where she had touched it. Tomorrow there would be more trials, more challenges, more dangers he did not yet understand. But tonight, for the first time since arriving, he did not feel quite so alone. Sun-ho was tested on wisdom, which involved solving puzzles that seemed impossible until he learned to think in ways he had never considered before. He was tested on endurance, which pushed his body and mind to the breaking point over 3 days without sleep. He survived both, though barely. But as the trials continued, Sun-ho noticed things that troubled him. It started with small details. A candidate who flinched whenever Ambassador Orn looked at her. 2 candidates whispering in a corner who fell silent the moment anyone approached. A young female with scales like broken glass who always sat alone, her eyes empty and far away. Sun-ho began paying attention to these patterns. He was no spy, no investigator, but he was human, and humans had learned long ago to watch for danger in the behavior of others. One evening, after a particularly exhausting test of endurance, Sun-ho found himself walking through a quiet section of the station. He was looking for peace, a moment alone to gather his thoughts. Instead, he found the candidate with broken glass scales. Her name was Thessa. She was a Valorian, from a species that looked like moths had evolved into humanoid form. Her wings were folded against her back, and they had once been beautiful, covered in patterns of purple and silver. But now they were torn and faded, like old curtains left too long in the sun. She sat on a bench beneath a window that showed the emptiness of space. She did not seem to notice Sun-ho until he spoke. "May I sit with you?" Thessa looked up. Her eyes were large and dark, and filled with a sadness that Sun-ho recognized. It was the sadness of someone who had given up. "If you wish," she said. Her voice was soft and dry, like leaves rustling. Sun-ho sat beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the stars together. Finally, Thessa broke the silence. "You should not waste your time with me, human. I am not like the others. I have nothing to offer you." "I am not looking for anything," Sun-ho said. "I just wanted company." Thessa turned to look at him fully. "That is strange. Everyone here wants something." "What do you want?" The question seemed to surprise her. Her dark eyes widened, and for a moment, something like life flickered in them. "I want to go home. But my home is dying. My people are dying. The council promised to help us if I participated in this event." The word came out like poison. "So here I am. A prize in a game I never asked to play." Sun-ho's hands tightened on his knees. "That is not right. Right and wrong do not matter to the council." Thessa's voice was bitter. "Only power matters. Only debts and favors and alliances. We are pieces on a board, moved by hands we cannot see. Are there others like you? Others who did not choose to be here?" Thessa laughed, though there was no humor in it. Look around you, human. Count the smiles that reach the eyes. Count the ones who move freely without fear. You will find very few. Sunho thought about what she said. He thought about the flinching candidate, the whispering pairs, the empty stares. He thought about what Eula had told him. Who is doing this? He asked. Who is forcing them? Thessa shook her head. I do not know all of them, but Ambassador Orn is part of it. And there are others. Council members who see this gathering as an opportunity to settle old scores and create new obligations. And the Council allows this? The Council does not care. To them, we are nobodies from nowhere. Our suffering is invisible. Thessa's wings rustled sadly. That is how power works. Human, those at the top, never see those at the bottom. They do not want to see. Sunho stood up. His exhaustion was forgotten, replaced by something hotter. Something that felt like anger. Thank you for telling me this, Thessa. She looked up at him with confusion. Why do you thank me? I have only burdened you with truths you cannot change. Maybe, Sunho said, but maybe not. He found Ambassador Orn in a grand office filled with expensive things from dozens of worlds. The ambassador sat behind a desk that seemed designed to make visitors feel small. His multiple eyes blinked slowly as Sunho entered without invitation. Park Sunho, Orn said. His voice was calm, but there was warning beneath it. You should not be here. This area is restricted. I have questions, Sunho said. About the candidates. About why they are really here. Orn's eyes blinked in sequence. Faster than before. I do not know what you mean. I think you do. I think many of these women were forced to participate. Their families owed debts to people like you. This whole event is just a way to control them. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost all pretense of friendliness. You are very bold for a human. A species that has been in space for barely 200 years. You know nothing of our ways, our history, our customs. I know what coercion looks like, Sunho said. I know what fear looks like. And I see both here. Orn rose from his chair. He was not tall, but in that moment, he seemed to fill the room. Be careful, human. You have value because of what you did 3 years ago. But that value is not unlimited. If you become troublesome, accidents can be arranged. Is that a threat? It is a fact of life. Orn walked around his desk, coming closer to Sunho. Go back to your trials. Play your part. Smile and compete and choose your brides. That is all you need to do. Leave politics to those who understand them. Sunho did not back away. And if I refuse, then you will learn, painfully, that the galaxy is not as kind as you hope. Orn's eyes fixed on Sunho with cold intensity. I have destroyed beings far more powerful than you, human. Do not test me. Sunho left the office with Orn's words ringing in his ears. His heart was pounding. His mind was racing. He had just made an enemy of one of the most powerful beings on the station. He found Velra waiting for him in the corridor outside. The Silver Princess stood with her arms crossed, her purple eyes studying him. I heard your conversation. The walls here are thinner than Orn realizes. Sunho tensed. Are you going to report me? No. Velra stepped closer, lowering her voice. I am going to help you. Why? Something flickered across her silver face. Pain, maybe, or memory. Because my sister was not grateful to be saved from that solar flare. She was relieved that she would not be sold to repay a debt our family owed. The same debt that brought me here. Sunho stared at her. The cold princess, the one who had looked at him like an insect, was herself a victim. Orn and his allies cannot be fought openly, Velra continued. But perhaps they can be outmaneuvered. If we work together, if we find others who share our goals. From the shadows, Kira emerged. The Dravani warrior nodded once. I have heard things, seen things. My people were soldiers, not slaves. I do not like what is happening here. And then Eula appeared, her soft glow lighting the dark corridor. We are with you, Park Sunho. Whatever comes next. Sunho looked at the 3 alien females who had chosen to stand beside him. A princess, a warrior, and an empath. Each powerful in her own way. each trapped in a system that saw them as property. "All right," he said. "Then let us find a way to change things." Unlike the other trials, which had been designed by the council, this one allowed Sun Ho to choose his own test. He could demonstrate his creative abilities in any way he wished, as long as it impressed the judges. Most candidates in past provings had used this opportunity to show off. They created art or music or technology. They performed feats of imagination that dazzled the audience. They tried to prove they were special, unique, worthy. Sun Ho had a different idea. He spent 3 days preparing. He worked with the station's systems, programming and adjusting. He talked to the kitchen staff, explaining human food and drinks in simple terms. He found a way to access Earth's music archives. And most importantly, he talked to as many candidates as would listen. On the night of the final trial, the grand hall was decorated in ways the aliens had never seen. Colorful lights hung from the ceiling, shifting and dancing like living things. Tables were arranged not in formal rows but in small clusters, encouraging conversation. Strange sounds filled the air, sounds that the aliens would later learn were called music, though it was nothing like the formal compositions they knew. Ambassador Orn stood at the entrance, his multiple eyes blinking in confusion. "What is this?" "The trial of creativity," Sun Ho said. He stood in the center of the hall wearing simple clothes instead of formal robes. "I have created something. Something humans call a party." "A party?" Orn's voice dripped with disdain. "This is your demonstration of creativity? Lights and noise and disorder?" "Yes," Sun Ho smiled. "Please, come in. Everyone is welcome." The candidates entered slowly, uncertainly. They were used to formal events with strict rules about who sat where and who spoke to whom. This chaos confused them. But then something remarkable began to happen. A candidate from a species that communicated through color changes found herself standing near a light that shifted in similar ways. She reached out to touch it, and the light responded, matching her colors. She laughed, a sound like chimes, and soon others gathered around her. 2 candidates from species that had been rivals for centuries found themselves at the same table, facing a plate of strange human food. Neither knew how to eat it. They looked at each other, looked at the food, and started experimenting together. Within minutes, they were laughing at their shared confusion. Kira stood near a corner, looking uncomfortable. Parties were not part of Dravani culture. But then the music changed to something with a heavy beat, and her feet began to move on their own. She tried to stop, but her body refused. Soon she was dancing. Badly, surrounded by candidates who cheered her on. Eula floated through the crowd, her light shifting with joy she could feel from everyone around her. Emotions flowed through the room like water. Surprise, curiosity, amusement, and underneath it all, a growing sense of freedom. Even Velra, who stood apart at first, eventually allowed herself to be pulled into a conversation with 3 candidates she had never spoken to. They talked about their homes, their families, their fears and hopes. For the first time in months, she felt like a person instead of a princess. Broker Nyx watched from the shadows, his amber eyes missing nothing. Thessa found Sun Ho near the food tables. Her wings, usually folded and dull, were slightly open, catching the light. "What is the purpose of this?" she asked. "There is no purpose," Sun Ho said. "That is the point. Back on Earth, we have parties to celebrate being alive, to connect with others, to forget our problems for a while and just enjoy existing. But this is a trial. You are supposed to prove your worth." Sun Ho handed her a small pastry he had convinced the kitchen to make. "My worth is not something I can prove by showing off. I am not an artist or a genius or a hero. I am just a person. And if I have learned anything about people, it is that we need moments like this, moments where we can just be ourselves." Thessa took the pastry and bit into it carefully. Her eyes widened. "This is sweet. It is called a honey cake. My mother used to make them." Thessa ate the rest of the pastry in silence. When she finished, there were tears in her large dark eyes. "I had forgotten what it felt like to enjoy something simple. Maybe that is what I wanted to create tonight," Sun Ho said softly. "Not art or technology, but a memory. A moment everyone can carry with them, no matter what happens next." As the hours passed, the party grew. Candidates who had never spoken to each other became friends. Species that had avoided each other for generations found common ground. Laughter filled the hall. Genuine laughter. The kind that cannot be faked. Ambassador Orn stood at the edge of it all, his face unreadable. "This is irregular," he muttered to no one in particular. "This is not how the proving is supposed to work." "No," said Broker Nix, appearing beside him. "It is not." But there was something in his voice that sounded almost like approval. Orn turned to him sharply. "You cannot possibly support this chaos." "I support results, Ambassador. Look around you. Do you see what is happening?" Orn looked. The candidates, who had been divided and isolated and afraid, were coming together. They were forming bonds, creating alliances, building something that had not existed before tonight. "He is not trying to win them," Nick said quietly. "He is trying to free them." Orn's eyes blinked rapidly. "That is dangerous." "Yes." Nick smiled his sharp smile. "Very dangerous indeed." As midnight approached, the music slowed. Candidates sat in small groups, talking quietly. Some had fallen asleep in comfortable corners. Others stood by windows, watching the stars with new friends. Sunho stood alone for a moment, looking at what he had created. It was not much, by galactic standards. A simple gathering, food and music and lights. But somehow, it had changed everything. Velra found him there. Her silver face was softer than he had ever seen it. "You could have used this trial to impress us," she said, "to show your power or your intelligence. Instead, you gave us this. Is that bad?" "No." Velra looked out at the candidates, many of whom were smiling for the first time since arriving. "It is the most impressive thing anyone has ever done." She took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth like polished metal. "Tomorrow, the council will announce their judgment. The proving will end. And then—" She paused. "I do not know what will happen then." "Neither do I," Sunho admitted. "But whatever comes next, at least we will face it together." Velra squeezed his hand. "Yes, together." In the shadows, Broker Nix pulled out a communication device and spoke into it quietly. "The human is more dangerous than we thought, not because of his weapons or his strength, but because he makes others believe in him, believe in something better." He ended the call and watched Sunho standing with the princess, surrounded by dozens of aliens who had found hope in the strangest of places. "Earth has sent us something unexpected," Nix murmured to himself. "I wonder if they even know what they have created." Sunho had not slept. He had spent the night preparing, reading through ancient galactic laws that Velra had found, memorizing passages that Eula said might be useful. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but his mind was sharp with purpose. The grand hall had been restored to its formal arrangement. The celebration of the night before might as well have been a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung still and cold. The tables stood in perfect rows. The candidates sat in their assigned seats, their beautiful clothes hiding the tension underneath. Ambassador Orn stood at the front of the hall, his blue skin darker than usual, his eyes blinking slowly with satisfaction. Behind him, other council members sat in elevated seats, watching like judges at a trial. "We have gathered today to conclude the proving," Orn announced. His voice echoed through the hall. "Park Sunho of Earth has completed all 5 trials. He has demonstrated strength, wisdom, compassion, endurance, and creativity. The council finds him worthy." Polite applause rippled through the audience. Some of it was genuine. Most of it was not. "According to our ancient traditions, the human may now select which candidates he wishes to bond with. The valor debt will be satisfied. And I refuse." Sunho's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Ambassador Orn froze. His eyes blinked out of sync, a sign of extreme agitation. "What did you say?" Sunho stood from his seat and walked to the center of the hall. Every eye followed him. "I said I refuse. I will not select anyone. I will not accept this reward." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some candidates looked confused. Others looked hopeful. A few looked terrified. "This is highly irregular," Orn said. His voice was tight with controlled anger. "You cannot simply refuse a valor debt. It has been part of our laws for 10,000 years. I am not refusing the debt, Sunho said. I am refusing the reward. That is the same thing. No, it is not. Sunho reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data tablet. I have been reading your laws, Ambassador. There is a clause that most people have forgotten. It is called the right of reciprocal debt. The council members stirred in their seats. Several leaned forward with sudden interest. When a valor debt is offered and refused, Sunho continued, the debt does not disappear. It transfers back to those who offered it, in this case, to the Galactic Council itself. Orn's face twisted. That law has not been used in centuries, but it still exists, and I am invoking it now. Sunho looked around the hall, at the candidates who watched him with growing hope, at the council members who watched with growing fear. The council owes me a debt, and I know exactly how I want it repaid. Name your price, one of the council members said. Her voice was cold, but there was caution in it. Release them. Sunho gestured to the candidates. Every single one who was coerced into being here. Everyone who came not by choice but by force. Free them. Let them go home to their families, their worlds, their lives. Ambassador Orn laughed harshly. Impossible. Many of these females are here to pay debts owed by their families. Political agreements spanning generations. You cannot simply erase all of that. I am not asking you to erase the debts. I am asking you to transfer them. Sunho held up his data tablet. Transfer every one of those debts to me. I will take them on. I will owe what they owe, and I will spend my life paying them back if I must. Silence fell over the hall. Complete, total silence. Velra rose from her seat. Her silver face was unreadable, but her voice rang clear. I stand with the human. His proposal is legal. The council must consider it. Kira stood next. The Dravani respect those who sacrifice for others. I support this. Eula rose, her light burning brighter than before. The Aetheri believe in the power of compassion. We support this. One by one, other candidates stood. Thessa with her broken wings, a young woman with scales like jewels, a tall figure made of living shadow. They stood, and in standing, they declared their support. Soon, half the candidates were on their feet. Ambassador Orn looked around wildly. This was not supposed to happen. The human was supposed to be grateful, compliant, easy to control. Instead, he had turned the entire proving upside down. This is chaos, Orn sputtered. This is rebellion against the council. No, said Broker Nix, stepping forward from the shadows. His amber eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. This is democracy. Something humans are quite fond of, I understand. He turned to face the council members. The humans' proposal is legal. The debts can be transferred. The candidates can be released. The only question is whether the council has the courage to allow it. The council members huddled together, whispering urgently. Minutes passed. The candidates who were standing began to waver. Sunho's legs ached from standing still for so long. Finally, the senior council member, an ancient being whose species Sunho could not identify, rose from her seat. The council has reached a decision, she said. Her voice was like wind through dry grass. The human's proposal is unprecedented. It challenges traditions that have existed for millennia. It threatens the power of many influential families. Sunho held his breath. But it is legal, and it is just. The ancient being looked at Sunho with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. The debts will be transferred. The candidates who wish to leave may do so. Those who wish to stay may do so freely, as individuals, not as property. The hall erupted. Candidates embraced each other, some crying, some laughing. The council members who had supported Orn's faction sat in stunned silence. Orn himself looked like someone had struck him across the face. Sunho felt his knees give out. He would have fallen if Kira had not caught him. Foolish human, she said, but her voice was warm. You cannot save the galaxy and collapse at the same time. I was not trying to save the galaxy, Sunho mumbled. Just a few people. Velra appeared beside him. Her purple eyes shimmered with something that might have been tears. You took on debts that will take lifetimes to repay, for people you barely know. I know them well enough, Sunho said. And besides, I have help now. He looked at the three women who stood around him. The princess who had learned to smile. The warrior who had learned to dance. The empath who had learned to hope. "You did not have to stay," he said. "Any of you. You are free now." Eula took his hand, her warmth spreading through him. "We know. That is why we are staying." Kira punched his shoulder, hard enough to leave a bruise. "Someone needs to make sure you do not get killed. You are very bad at taking care of yourself." Velra simply looked at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she laughed. It was a sound like silver bells ringing. "You have turned our entire civilization upside down in less than 2 weeks," she said. "Imagine what you could do with more time." As they walked out of the grand hall together, Broker Nix watched from the shadows. He pulled out his communicator one last time. "The humans are more dangerous than we thought," he reported. "Not because of their weapons, not because of their technology, because they make others believe in them. Believe in things we had forgotten were possible." He ended the call and smiled his sharp smile. "Welcome to the galaxy, Park Sunho of Earth. Things are about to get very interesting." 6 months later, Sunho would receive another message. This time, it would be an invitation to join the Galactic Council as Earth's first ambassador. But that is another story, for another time. For now, he walked among the stars with 3 remarkable women at his side, carrying the weight of 100 debts and the hope of 100 souls. It was more than he had ever expected from life. And somehow, it was exactly where he was meant to be.